Okay, so I appreciate it is getting late in the day. I'm sure our legs are all weary. We're ready to go and party the night away. But I promise I'm going to hopefully give you some value out of today's session. We're going to be looking at Marketing Cloud account engagement for small businesses, otherwise known as Pardot. I'm really trying to force myself to call it account engagement, but as I'm sure you've heard all day, Pardot just comes more naturally. So I'm going to try my best, but if I say Pardot, account engagement, it's exactly the same thing. So first of all, a little bit about myself. My name is Laura Curtis, and I am a CRM and marketing automation strategist at Secante. I have just over 4 years worth of experience with Pardot specifically and Salesforce, 6 times Salesforce, and a recently, I don't know whether you'd call it promoted, but a Salesforce marketing champion, and I am based in sunny Northampton in the UK. So, Marketing Cloud account engagement. Where do you even start as a small business? It can be so overwhelming, frustrating, and everything in between. I get it, I've been there. But don't worry, we have a plan. We're going to have a look at what account engagement is, first of all, make sure that we're all here for the right reason. We're going to go through some basics that even the smallest of businesses need to make sure that they've checked off in order to then maximize their investment into account engagement. We're then going to be looking at some key areas, which are all going to be key for those that you're in small businesses. And we're going to go through the tools, the techniques, and everything in between on how to get started in those areas, as well as how to maximize within those areas. We've got a lot of content today to get through, so I'm going to try and speed through everything, and then we'll get some chance to answer questions. If not, come and find me afterwards, or send me a message in the app, and I'll get that answered over to you. So first of all, from the outside, many small businesses are feeling as if they're unable to get to that enterprise level. It's been a historic belief that only those big companies with lots of money, lots of resources, lots of time are able to then invest in something like Pardot. That's not true. My job today is going to be making you feel as if you are competing with those enterprise clients. Because after all, if we pull back the curtain, you're all using the same tool. You've all made this same investment, so why shouldn't you get the benefits the same as those enterprise clients as well? We just need to be smart about it. So, I mentioned some key areas. We're going to have a look at 5 key areas, and I mentioned my goal. My goal is to turn you from thinking that you're a small business that is unable to compete with those enterprise clients into a mighty small business. You've got those key areas to take away at the end of this session, and you know exactly what you need to do to maximize your investment in Pardot. So we'll be looking at everything from automating and scaling your business as a small business, all the way through to that reporting and that ROI, so seeing that return on your investment in Pardot. I mentioned some basics at the start. So before we get into the fun stuff, the exciting stuff of Pardot, it's important that we cross off our checklists, our bare bone basics. And I refer to this as kind of building or baking a cake. This is your sponge. There is no point going into something and wanting to bake a cake and you have a flimsy, unstable sponge, and then you pile icing, sprinkles, candles, the works on top of it, because the cake's just going to collapse. So you're going to want to make sure that you've got your fundamental foundation set up first. And I've split these into 3 sections. So you have your technical setup items, you have your Salesforce integration items, and you have your general housekeeping items. So I'm not going to go through all of them. I'd like you to use this as your checklist. So whether you've been using Pardot for a long time as a small business, or whether this is your first time attending something like this, or you're considering purchasing Pardot, you're going to want to use these as a checklist to go through. But some of the important things here as a small business is making sure that you have your website tracking set up. As a small business, you need to make sure that you're tracking every single visit to your website. We don't want to be losing anything through the cracks. You're also going to want to make sure that you set up your email domain. So it's going to give us the best chance possible to get those emails into those inboxes. Again, your time is probably limited. Your resources are probably limited. So that effort that you're putting into your website and your emails, we want to make sure that it's working. When it comes to the Salesforce integration, Some of these I've heard in other sessions, so I'm going to be repeating a lot of these as we go through. There's a lot of crossover in today's sessions that are going through. Sync behaviours. Make sure you keep an eye on those sync behaviours. You understand why things are syncing and erroring over, because that's going to prevent potentially new leads, those handful of leads that you may get, or those hundreds of leads that you may get every week. Again, we don't want any of those slipping through the net because they're stuck in your sync error queue. You're also going to want to have a look at things like your sync behaviour. So we've mentioned that on other sessions, that relationship between Pardot and Salesforce, that valuable data that you hold in both systems, make sure that we understand that sync behaviour on the field level. And then thirdly, on your checklist, some people would criticise me and say that this isn't important, it's the most boring thing. I would argue with them and say that this is one of the most important things. And I promise you, if you are just starting out on your Pardot journey, you will thank me in 6 to 12 months' time by having a nice, tidy house. You do not want Pardot looking like your junk drawer at home, where you're rooting through Nokia chargers and radiator keys and things like that. You want to know exactly where your things are in Pardot so you can quickly and efficiently find things. So with that, you have naming conventions, folder structures, templates, notifications. Make sure that right people are being notified. Okay, so we have our basics crossed off. We're going to assume at this point that you have all of these done, dusted, you're ready to go ahead and maximize Pardot for your small business. I mentioned 5 key areas which are going to play a really important role as a small business, and I would urge you to consider these 5 areas within your business. Number 1, automating and scaling your business. How can Pardot help us do that? What are the key tools and techniques that are going to help us work quicker and more effectively? One of my personal favourites is Engagement Studio programs, and it's not just used for sending emails. So if you're sat there and you've only got Engagement Studio set up for emails, stop and reevaluate what else that can be used for. So you can set up Engagement Studios for things like cleaning your data, for lead assignment, lead routing, notifications, you name it, Engagement Studio is your tool to go to. So break out of that habit of thinking Engagement Studio is just for emails. Another tool is automation rules. So these are incredibly powerful, and they can be used to automate routine tasks that you would otherwise perhaps have to have an employee do that for you. So that's more expense on board. So you can start to use automation rules based on things like prospect behavior, prospect data that you've got. So for example, if they're clicking on an email, if they provide a certain piece of information, increase their score, or change something in somebody's value. And then finally, completion actions. One of the most popular completion actions that I see on a daily basis is those autoresponders on your forms. Again, another key takeaway here. If you have Pardot forms on your website, please set up completion actions to set up autoresponder emails. Let your potential clients know what the expectations is. I'm going to contact you in 48 hours and we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z, so make sure you have this available. Saves you time and makes you more efficient. What if you're looking to take it to the next step? You've done all of that and you're looking for some extra pieces of information. How else can you automate and scale your business with Pardot? We've mentioned completion actions, but we haven't mentioned conditional completion actions. So this is still, I would consider, relatively new. It's been out there, let's say, a year or so, getting on for that. But essentially, completion actions will apply to every single person that would fill out that form, for example. So every one of you in this room would fill out the form, and every single one of you would get that autoresponder email. Now, we can be fancy with that and personalize it, but we've not really targeted or set up a criteria for those people that should get that email. So for example, some of you here may be in a certain industry, a certain location within the UK or elsewhere in the world. We can set up conditional completion actions to say when somebody is from specifically the finance industry, then send them this autoresponder email. So we're getting a little bit more targeted, a little bit more smarter with what we do. Custom redirects outside of account engagement. Another thing that I see a lot of clients miss out on. And custom redirects are going to give you that value when you work for third parties. So for example, you may purchase a banner with, let's say, Salesforce BEM. You want to know what that return is going to be for that. You've put a lot of expense into that banner. So you want to know how many prospects have clicked on that. So use custom redirects for that. Another one on here is combining account engagement Pardot with Salesforce flow actions. So if you're smart with flows over in Salesforce, use that to your advantage and start building in Pardot actions within that. And finally, even if you've been using Pardot for 5 minutes or 5 years, pick the right automation tool for the job. Don't just go for that automation rule. As we've said, don't just go to Engagement Studio for emails alone. Area number 2, where Pardot can help you. It can help you manage your leads. Your time is probably short. Your sales team are probably there sat waiting for good quality leads, and you want to make sure that every single one of those count. So use Pardot to keep that junk out. Stop it before it goes over into Salesforce. Use things like dynamic lists, automation rules, engagement studios to make sure that you're cleaning that data, updating that data, and processing it if they're not right for you. So for example, if you don't work with a particular industry or a particular location in the world, remove them and prevent them from going over into Salesforce as leads. Second up, scoring and grading. So we mentioned your sales team are probably sat there wanting the creme de la creme, the perfect lead. And if we're sending over junk leads that aren't right for us, they're going to get frustrated with us, which is going to give us more work that we don't need. So if you set up scoring and grading, you get to see who is engaged with you as a brand through their score and who you are interested in through their grade. So you're going to want to use those as a combination. A high score doesn't necessarily mean a good lead. You want a high score and a high grade. And then thirdly, create that lead assignment process. Use those automation tools. Sit down with your team and decide what that process should be. When should something turn from an MQL into a SQL or a lead or whatever the terminology is that you're using within your business? Use the actions within those automations, such as assign into Salesforce queues, assign into groups, so you can round robin to people. And as we've said, use those automation rules. So how can we go again one step further with managing leads? This is all about being fair. So previously, you may just be assigning all your leads to one person. I may be just assigning it to Natalie, for example. That's not going to be fair. The more leads you get in, Natalie's going to have a bigger job on her hand. So use things such as queues, Pardot groups, or Salesforce lead assignment rules to make sure it's evenly shared across all of you. So everybody's got a cut of the pie. Third up, we're going to enable our sales team. So I feel like this is a big topic at the moment across all the sessions here, making sure we share that data with our teams. And this is the biggest frustration I find with any business, but particularly small businesses. There are those silos between marketing teams and sales teams, and it's because they're not sharing information. One team doesn't know what the other team is doing, so they get frustrated. Marketing get yelled at for not supplying enough leads, and sales get yelled at for not processing the leads quickly enough. Why are we not making sales? So this section is all about enabling your sales team to see that visibility into the Pardot world. And we're going to do that by using 3 tools. Engagement metrics. So we can see at the top here, we have Mr. Trevor B, and we can see this is over in Salesforce. So I could be the salesperson for Mr. Trevor B, and I can easily see on his record that he has completed a form and has viewed a landing page. So now I know what Trevor is interested in and what he's doing without me even needing to go into Pardot or talk to the marketing team. Second up, you have scoring and grading again. But this time, it's adding that value to the sales team. So previously, it was about your job as a marketer to send over quality leads. This time, it's to open that door over to sales and allow them to see that scoring and grading. So you're going to add that scoring and grading to things such as your leads, your contacts, your list views, your reports, and that's going to enable them to work through the best leads quicker. So we can see here, we have a leads list view, and we can work from top to bottom. So we can see that Dusty Hill, he should be contacted first maybe. He's got a high score, but a low grade. So I would probably actually go for Trevor as being the first one that I'm going to call. A nice high score, he's interested in us, and a fairly high grade compared to the other two, which means that he's more suited to us as a business. So your sales team can open that list view each morning and go through in order on which ones to contact first. So how can you take it to the next level? How can you maximize enabling sales teams? You're going to allow your sales team to add people to Salesforce campaigns. Now, this may be scary for some. You're opening the door to the word campaigns, which is normally reserved for marketing teams. But your job as a marketer is to add people to campaigns, and it should be the salesperson's job as well to add people to campaigns. An example could be you're holding a webinar next month. Your sales team are on the phone all day, every day, and they're speaking to lots of different people, and I identify that you might be perfect for this webinar. So I'm going to add you into my Salesforce campaign. Meanwhile, marketing have set up a dynamic list, which is feeding an engagement studio, to look for people in that campaign and start sending them emails about that webinar that you're holding. When it comes to scoring and grading, another observation I've made through working with clients is you can't just set it and leave it. Although your time may be limited, it's something that you need to go over at least once a year with your sales team. Understand what that scoring threshold should be and what your grading metrics should be. And you need to, I'm sorry, you need to get in a room with your sales team and work together on this, because sales are going to hold that golden key to telling you what is right for our business. They're going to give you that insight of what works well. So we're making things more efficient, quicker, better, the works through using scoring and grading. And again, it's come up again, field sync behavior. So again, make sure that that data is being shared between the two environments. Area number 4, we're going to improve user experience through Pardot. So there was a previous session, probably an hour ago, on personalization, and this follows the same track. We're going to be using these key tools to personalize our content, to make them more effective and therefore increase engagement across our audience. So we have our standard merge fields. If you want to play it safe, you're going to use your merge fields, hi first name at company address. If you want to go a little bit more adventurous, you're going to use HTML, which is going to give you an alternative message if you don't have a value for first name. So for example, I may not have a value for your first name, but if I do, I'm going to address you by your first name. Otherwise, I'm going to say, hi, valued client. And that can be done in a number of different ways. It doesn't just have to be that recipient. It could be the body of the text. We could be changing the messaging completely. Maybe offering different sign-ups to different webinars based on what data we have. Dynamic content, there's a little asterisk there. Just be aware that not everybody will have access to dynamic content. You will need to be on one of the one of the more higher tiers of Pardot. It's getting late in the day. But we're going to use dynamic content not only in our emails. This is a kind of little secret. We can use it in our forms. We can use it on our website. So if you have a returning prospect come to your website, you're going to address them, welcome them back, and then your emails are going to be personalized. Your forms are going to be personalized, increasing that engagement and that conversion. Behavioral triggers. So you can use automation rules to trigger actions based on a behavior. So if they're doing something, do something in return. Maybe they're viewing something or clicking something, add them to the Salesforce campaign. I'm mentioning Salesforce campaigns a lot because when we get to the end, that is going to be your golden ticket to your ROI. If everybody is in a campaign, it's going to make your life a lot easier when it comes to reporting. And then last but not least, it probably seems like the most simple one, but segmentation lists. The times I go into clients' orgs, the smallest to the biggest, and they don't have the basic segmentation list set up. They don't have a list of all their current clients, their competitors, their partners, based on location, for example, or product or service or industry. The list is endless. So create those segmentation lists and use them to personalize and send appropriate messages to the appropriate audience. We can see an example here of HTML language, just jumping back up to the top, where essentially what we're doing is we're checking, do we have an owner's recipient email? If we do, then we're going to say contact us at the owner's recipient email, so the owner of that record in Salesforce. Or else, if we don't have that information for that person that's receiving the email, we're just going to simply send them contact us at a generic email address. So really, really simple trick there that doesn't take a lot of time, but could increase your conversion and your engagement. Taking it to the next level. Up first is your custom branded preference center. Again, how many people have a custom branded preference center within Pardot? Nobody? Okay, that's your first job then, when you get home. That terrifies me. People are going on your really, really cool websites. They're getting engaged with your brand. Your emails are spot on. The journey looks flawless. But then they go and click on the preference updates, and they get that awful thing out of the box, out of Pardot. It shouldn't even be in there. It's disgusting. Make sure you invest in a well-branded preference center. That's going to make the experience streamlined. It's going to keep your audience engaged. It's going to make sure that the process is followed from start to finish. You're going to want to make sure that that's seamless. Number 2, keep that data clean. I was talking to my colleagues earlier, and we've said the theme of today is around data, keeping it clean, making sure you've got what you need and you know what you need. So use those various tools within Pardot to make sure that that data's clean, because that's the first thing ticked off for you. Clean data, I can now go off and do something else. I can go and create that custom preference center. You're not wasting time either in marketing trying to figure out who should go in this list. You're not wasting the sales team thinking, is this a junk lead or is it a good lead? And secondly, use that advanced personalization. So what I mean by that is that dynamic content, if you have it within your org, and that HTML if you don't. So HTML should be in every single org from 2019, I think. If you had Pardot before 2019, then you will need to do a little upgrade, but super simple. Upgrade it to HTML, and you can start using things like this. That. Okay, number 5. I feel like I'm really speeding through this now. Hopefully everybody's keeping up and I'm not going at 100 miles an hour. Section number 5 that should be on your to-do list is using Pardot for your analytics and your business intelligence. You've done all of that fantastic work. You've followed those processes from 1 to 4, those 4 key stages, those 4 key areas of focus. Now you want to reap the rewards. You need to be able to see how well you're doing or where you potentially need to improve and invest further. So first up is using those B2B MA dashboards and reporting. This is going to show you performance-based metrics and be able to allow you to identify quality leads. Now, a word of warning on this one. You will find if you ever work with me that I'm incredibly honest, sometimes maybe a little bit too honest, but B2B MA is the next level up from Salesforce reports. So if you have a good understanding of Salesforce reports and it's just not working for you, you need to get into the data a little bit more, then investigate B2B MA. But just be warned that that can get a little bit complicated and a little bit of custom work may need on there. But we can see an example at the top here of one of the out-of-the-box dashboards that you get with that. So you'll get 4, I believe it's out of the box, and one of those is engagement. So you can start to see how your leads and contacts are engaging with your Pardot assets. So hopefully you can start to see a pattern from today's session and all the other sessions you may have attended, that it's all about pushing that information across. We want the CRM system to be our source of truth and where everything is going. We've just mentioned Salesforce reports and dashboards. Love them. Perfect. Really nice to use. But what's probably missing is that Pardot data. You can see everything about your lead, which is fantastic. You can see everything about that contact. But what are they doing with our Pardot assets? How much of a good lead are they? Or how much of a good contact are they? And with connected campaigns enabled, you can start to include that Pardot data. So you can start to say what emails have been sent to leads, how many emails in total, what was the click-through rate in total for this particular email or this particular campaign. And then finally, engagement dashboards, which we can see an example here again for Trevor B. You're going to add those engagement dashboards to your leads, your contacts, your accounts, your opportunities, and your campaigns. You're going to put it everywhere so nobody has the excuse to turn around and say to marketing, I don't know what that person's engaged with. I can't call them. I don't know what to talk about. You're going to give it to them on a plate, and it's going to be there in Salesforce for them. So we can see all the content that Trevor's engaged with. We can see all the campaigns that he's engaged with. And you can start to see which ones are resonating with him the most and maybe promote more of that kind of material to him. Taking it to the next level then, custom report types. Really, really love this one. So if you're really good at Salesforce reports, you've got a good understanding of it, create those custom report types. Start to create those report types where we're including that Pardot data. So we can see 2 examples there, engagement metrics on campaigns and engagement metrics on emails, all within Salesforce. So no need to be giving out Pardot access to everyone. Mentioned this at the start, naming conventions. I knew it would be coming back. Make sure you use good naming conventions and campaign hierarchy. This is going to help you when it comes to reporting on those campaigns. We're trying to make things quicker, more efficient for you guys. And having that good naming convention and knowing exactly what you need to search for, or having that understanding of your campaign hierarchy, means that you can build out reports quicker. If you're looking to implement something called campaign influence and ROI reporting, again, another fantastic tool. Looks something like this. It's going to give you a whole breakdown of everything that's happening within your campaigns. Absolutely wonderful. But 3 things to please remember. I still wake up in cold sweats with one client that didn't use these, and the workarounds to try and get this working, we're not ever going to go into that again. But make sure that you're using campaign members, opportunities, and opportunity contact roles. If you're struggling with opportunity contact roles, there's things out there that can help you do that automatically. But don't miss any one of those pieces, or else you'll turn on campaign influence and nothing will come out. And then finally, use those campaign member reports. And this is going to bring to light your your lead and your contact information all into one report around that particular campaign. Okay, let's breathe. There was a lot there in those 5 sessions. So what are the key takeaways? If you're going back to the office on Monday and somebody asks you, what did you learn from Laura's session? What can we do right now? These are the 5 things that I would urge you to start working on next week. Set up that house if you haven't already. So go through that basic checklist. Make sure you've got that good naming convention, that good folder structure, and everybody is invested in Pardot and using it efficiently. Number 2, review that data. What have you got? What's missing? So what do you need? How are you going to get it? Where is it? And what's wrong with the current data that you may have, and clean it up. Number 3, take a lunch break with the sales team. Start breaking down that barrier, that wall between marketing and Salesforce. It will make your life 110% easier. Number 4, set up connected campaigns. That's going to open up the doors to not only your reporting, so everything we've just seen in the previous slides, but it's also going to open up the doors to lots of other features within Pardot. So there's a lot of other features that you can't have if you don't have connected campaigns set up, and you don't want to miss out on them. And then number 5, not directly related to Pardot, but sit down with your team and start reviewing all the processes you have, whether that's your lead assignment process, whether you call it an MQL, a qualified lead, or just a lead or a prospect. Write it down and document it, and start to look at, where can Pardot do this for me? You're going to essentially be thinking, Pardot is another employee to my business. What else can I get out of it? General hints and tips. So I like to give out some tips as much as I can as we go through these sessions. Don't try and do it all at once. There is a lot of things that you can do in Pardot, and we've gone through a lot of those today. And it's tempting to run back to the office on Monday and start creating 101 different engagement studios and automation rules and expecting everything to go well. Don't try and do it all at once. Focus on creating the things that are going to benefit your business the most and the quickest. Don't try and automate everything. Again, one of the biggest failures I've seen is 101 different automation rules all competing against each other, along with engagement studios as well, and it just gets into a whole big pickle. So just because you can, and just because you have access to all of these wonderful tools, don't try and automate everything. You're still going to need humans for a little bit longer, hopefully, to do stuff for us. Keep the data clean. Don't think we need to go over that again, but I promise you, you will be coming into my LinkedIn inbox and thanking me in 6 to 12 months' time for having that data clean. Don't add more tech until you're ready. Again, another mistake that I see from small businesses. They think that the more tech means the bigger potential. So they start investing in loads and loads of different third parties, plugging it all into Pardot and Salesforce and hoping that it's going to solve all their problems. Make sure that you're ready to take on that tech. So that could be internally with the people that work with you, or it could be technology-wise, making sure that you have those resources in-house to manage those third-party tech. Draw clear roles and responsibilities. Again, there may not be many of you, perhaps, within the marketing or sales team, but you each need to have a role, and you each need to know what that is and how that contributes to the business. You don't want, just because you're a small business, everybody doing a bit of everything and stepping on everybody's toes. So it's okay to share responsibilities, just understand what everybody is doing, because then that might be you end up using all the automation tools. You don't realize that 2 of your colleagues have already set something up. And then my favorite is rule number 6. I love Pardot because you can have so much fun with it. Always remember rule number 6, the smallest business to the biggest business, but particularly those smaller businesses. You have more of an opportunity to really have fun with Pardot. Don't be restricted by that box. Break out of the box and find those creative solutions. I've heard a couple of solutions as we've gone through the day of Pardot can't do that, but we could make it do it by doing it this way. So start thinking outside of that box and get creative. That could be by using a different automation. We mentioned the engagement studio at the start for things like lead routing and data cleansing, or it could be that integration if you're ready. Some resources, I could have listed 10 plus slides of different resources for every single one of the things that we've gone through, but these are my top 4 places that I will always go to if I need some inspiration or I need some support. You've got the Spot for marketers, you've got Salesforce Ben, Salesforce Trailhead, and then the Pardashian Slack channel. So I think that kind of solidifies that Pardot will never go away because we have a whole Slack channel dedicated to Pardashians. But each of those are going to provide you a wealth of information. Bookmark all of those, go and sign up to the Slack channel, start taking the trailheads and build on that knowledge. I think we've got 5 minutes left. I'm really pleased that we've actually got time left, because when I timed myself, we were really cutting it fine. Any questions for the last 5 minutes? Yes?
Hi, I wondered if you could maybe share any best practice around archiving prospects and Pardot.
Oh, yes. Love that. Love archiving prospects. Okay, rule number 1, do not be frightened of that recycle bin, okay? Salesforce, when you throw something away, it's a little bit scary because it only stays in there for, what, 15 days, Natalie, is it? I've just literally just thrown that at you. It doesn't work that way in Pardot. So throw everybody that is unengaged, not good for you. Create those dynamic lists. Create dynamic lists of your competitors, the people that you don't work with, whether that's globally, whether that's product-based, whether that's a particular industry. Create dynamic lists to find those people. And then, yes, this would be a little bit of manual kind of intervention, but every quarter, go through those cleanup lists and delete them. Once they're in the bin, they don't count towards your mailable prospect limit, saving yourself some money. Because if you go past your mailable database limit, you can expect a call from the salespeople at Pardot asking you to part with more cash. We don't want that if we don't have to. Obviously, if you've got all those people and they're fantastic, then keep them and buy some more, but get rid of those unengaged. There's a really nice action on the dynamic list where it's not been active for so many days. So do the 30, the 60, the 90, and then throw them away. If they become engaged with us, they fill in a form next week after you've thrown them away, they come back out of the recycle bin. Does that help?
Yeah, that's good.
Excellent. Any other questions? No? Are we all excited? Oh, yeah.
Thank you. We were using Web to Lead into Salesforce before we started using Pardot, and we've never actually used Pardot forms.
Yeah.
So I just wondered, should we sort of stop using Web to Lead and start using forms, or can you use them both together? We're not sort of sure how to handle that.
I can see my 2 colleagues, and I feel like they're going to say the complete opposite to me. I would say use Pardot forms. My way of looking at it is, as soon as you use Pardot forms, you open the door to all those Pardot completion actions, those add to list, add to campaign, send autoresponder emails. And it also works in a more natural way. I see Pardot as the reception, the waiting room. You're there to qualify that person that's just turned up, and then they can go into the doctor's office once you've qualified them. The way that Web to Leads is kind of doing it is sending them straight to the doctors and then back down into Pardot for you to qualify. So I guess it kind of depends on what you've got set up and how integrated that process is. There's nothing wrong with either of them, but my personal preference would be Pardot forms. Speak to these 2 if you want the Web to Lead answer.
But
you can do progressive profiling on the form as well.
Exactly. And dependency fields as well.
Yeah.
On that one.
So if they go into Salesforce, you can't necessarily put them back in Pardot, right?
Exactly.
Unless you put all of the leads in Pardot, which you don't want to do because it's not GDPR.
Exactly.
you do one or the other, not both.
Yeah, I wouldn't do both. You either want them in the reception room first, Pardot, or send them straight through to the doctors and then face the consequences of can they get back into the reception kind of thing.
So it's probably a process question for us as a business as to how you want to
Exactly,
manage it.
yeah. How you want to unpick that.
Thank you.
No worries. I think we've got 1 minute. Any final questions in that 1 minute?
Also completely non-related, actually.
It is about Pardot though, isn't it? Like, it's not, we're not here for Marketo or...
When tracking on a single page application, have you ever done that before?
Not personally,
No.
but I've got 2 colleagues here that may be interested to talk to you afterwards. If not,
Yeah, that'd be
we can open it up a bit further. Yeah?
yeah.
Okay. Come and speak to us, and then if we can't answer it, we'll take it offline. Any other questions, or are you all eager to go and get a drink and dance the night away? Okay. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anthony from Deselect. And what is Deselect as a platform? It is essentially a way to enable marketers that use the Salesforce Marketing Cloud to get more out of their data. Deselect serves both non-technical marketers, for instance those who do not know how to write SQL queries, as well as technical marketers who are very well versed in the platform, but who are looking for ways to be more efficient or who just want to enable their less technical colleagues. DSelect is an official Salesforce Marketing Cloud partner that offers the leading marketing data enablement platform on AppExchange. Fortune 500 leaders and mid-sized businesses leverage DSelect's intuitive solutions to help marketing teams create more powerful, segmented audiences, control marketing communication frequency, and achieve faster Marketing Cloud ROI without code or technical dependencies.